Problem 52. So just like problem 51, this is going to use our information from this infographic here about Marcia's business, which sells picture frames. So important to remember, on the x-axis here, these are the number of frames she can make. The number represents the total number she can make. That's small frames on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, we have the number of large frames that she can make. So large frames can never dip below 2. They can never go above 8. One inference you can make is that this shaded region, because that represents the weekly constraints that Marcia has making the frames, it probably has something to do with her working around a 40-hour work week, for example, because it takes, on average, or 3 hours to make a large frame, right? And then the most number of large frames she can make is 32, so Marcia can probably work around a 32-hour work week, for example. So the question is actually asking, what is the maximum profit Marcia can earn from the picture frames she makes in 1 week? The most important information to pull from this particular infographic, to start at least, we have our equation, which is 30S plus 70L equals our profit. We'll call that P. She sells all the frames she makes, so there's no overturn in inventory. You don't have to worry about anything like that. This is just directly her profit. If she makes a frame, it goes into the profit. So then she also always has people buying them, right? So you don't have to worry about that portion. What is the maximum profit she can earn from the picture frames, right? So we have to find whether one of these numbers can be represented by this shaded region. For example, if she makes 0 small frames and makes 2 large frames, that's within the shaded region, but that's not going to make her much money, because if our equation has S being 0, then 30 times 0 is 0, so she's getting no money from small frames. She's only getting 2 large frames as well, which means 2 times 70 is going to equal our profit. And that's going to be $140. So again, 30 times 0 plus 70 times 2, that's going to equal 140, and that's not much money, right? So we can make an inference based on that. If we want to find the most money possible for Marcia, we want the highest possible Y values or L values, as well as the highest possible S values, which means that somewhere on this portion of the graph, which is going to equal this line right here, that's where our point's going to lie. That's going to be where maximum profit is. Anywhere beneath that, let's say I pick this point, well, I could just go farther to right here or farther up here and I'd make more money. So you could do that for any point if you pick it's inside the shaded region, but not on this line. Anything in here that's not on this line, you can always pick a point that will earn you or make more frames, which in turn will earn you more money, right? So I pick this point again, then I can either make, I'm picking 6 frames, 6 large frames, 2 small frames. I could just make 7 large frames, or I could make 2 more small frames for a total of 3 small frames. This is 1, not 2, sorry. So then we know we want to pick something on this line because that will maximize the number of frames we can make, which in turn will maximize our profit. So now the only question is which to make. Now it's important to look at how much money she can make from each frame. So let's look at this equation, and we can see that this coefficient here, this 30 and this 70, is going to be the amount of money she can make by selling each type of frame. So she makes $30 for every small frame that she sells. She makes $70 for every large frame that she sells, or makes, because she's selling all the ones she's making. So in order to find the maximum profit, we know that we really want to focus on high numbers for L, because 70 is more than double 30, right? So any number for L is going to be a big boost to her profit, but numbers for S are going to be about half as much boost. Then we can see that the number of large frames she has a maximum of 8, and the number of small frames has a maximum of 9. But if 70 is greater than, not greater than or equal to, greater than, it's strictly greater than 2 times 30, then for every small frame, if we want to use just small frames, for example, she would have to make over double the amount of large frames. But the most small frames she can make is 9. 9 is less than double 8, which equals 16. So again, we're looking at this problem using our critical thinking skills in order to determine where on this line is going to be the maximum profit. And if she only sells at a maximum 9 small frames, she could be selling, for example, 8 large frames. The corresponding large frame value would be around half of 9, which is 4.5 frames. But again, that would land her over here, which means that'd be one of those points where you could sell more large frames, right? So let's just pick the most amount of large frames because she gets more bang for her buck. So let's say this point here, 0.8, let's say that represents her profit. We'd have 0 for S, or 30 times 0, plus 70 times 8 large frames. So this is going to die because 30 times 0 is 0, equals P, our profit. 70 times 8 is 560, which equals P, our profit. And we're done. That was pretty easy, just simplifying that. If you wanted to double check, for example, you could check this point here, which is going to be 3.6. Let's say this wasn't our profit, right? Then that means some other point on this line, we know that that's where the profit lies, the maximum profit. Some other point on this line would have to be bigger than this number 560. Our hypothesis is that it's not going to be, but let's just check. If we picked another point like 3.6, for example, we'd have 30 times 3 for the small frames, plus 70 times 6 for the large frames. 30 times 3 is 90, plus 70 times 6, which is 420, equals our P. 90 plus 420 is going to equal 510. 510 is less than 560. You could do the same thing for this value here, where our small frames equals 9. So 30 times 9 plus 0 large frames, so 70 times 0, that's going to die because anything times 0 is 0. So our P is going to equal 30 times 9. I'll write on this side so I don't confuse people. 30 times 9, which is 270, equals our P, and 270 is way less than 560. So then we know that 560 has to be the maximum, right? Because there's no other point that lies on this line that could be more than that because of the weight that it carries and the amount of money she's making for large frames compared to small frames. So you could just stop at that 560. You could check your answer if you wanted. If you feel confident about your critical thinking, like you should after practicing the ACT prep problems, right? I would just go with your gut. You know that she's making way more, over double for large frames, which means she wants the most large frames possible. So we put that into our equation, 0 for small frames, as many large frames as possible, which is this value 8, because that's where it is. That's where this axis is. It's telling us the number of large frames sold with 8. We plug that in, we get 560. We know our answer is J, 560.